So what up, friendos? Welcome back. I figured I'd just bang on a recording today and talk about this very interesting story. Games industry, quote, hopes GTA 6 costs $100 to justify gaming price hike, says analyst. And obviously this is interesting, right? Because this is what I like to personally call delusional, right? If you work in the games industry, if you work adjacent to the games industry, in fact, if you even have a brain, like if it's even remotely functional, if you haven't overdosed on all the crayons you've been eating, you'll know that regardless of whether GTA costs $1 or $1,000, that has zero implication on what you could charge for your game if you are not selling GTA 6, because you are not you're not Rockstar, and you don't have a game that is probably as good and as coveted as GTA 6. So regardless of what they do, it is entirely irrelevant to your business. If you hope that let's say this comes from like a Ubisoft exec or something, if you think, oh, GTA charged $100 for their base version of the game, by the way, they're not talking about like the Global Express Digital Platinum Game of the Century edition that comes with the next 13 DLCs and $9 million of, smackaroo bucks or whatever the fuck we get nowadays in GTA games. Probably something coin or whatever the crypto bros hope. Regardless, it has no implication on what you're going to do, because nobody's buying your games at the current price. Like, the games industry is in a record decline, by the way. As in, when factoring in GDP of the world and also spending in other areas such as digital video, books, music, and things like that, people are spending less on video games than not only projections, but what was on pace for year on year prior to 2021. The industry is in a decline, and there's no clearer indicator than that than that of tens of thousands of employees being laid off per year, probably even hundreds of thousands at this point per year in this industry. No other industry is seeing that, not in the levels that we're seeing. Obviously, tech has had a bunch of layoffs, but tech is kind of adjacent to gaming anyway. A lot of those tech companies have gaming properties or investments in gaming properties, and also gaming's just outpaced that by probably orders of magnitude at this stage. And a lot of that comes from executives overhiring during COVID, because for some reason they thought, oh, loads of people are getting into video games when they're all locked in the house and can't leave anymore. So therefore, we need to hire 5,000 new employees and make new jobs and make new properties and things to keep up with that. Even though by the time we're done even making one product with those new people, the people that are locked up will no longer be locked up, and therefore we'll have missed that opportunity anyway. Didn't make sense to me, but I'm not a multi-millionaire executive being paid in crazy money to make these decisions. But obviously, again, whether or not one of the most popular video games ever, one of the most anticipated video games ever, charges $100 for their base version of the game is totally irrelevant to whether or not you can, for your shit made in 3 years, slopped out, full of microtransactions, content withheld, day one bug, piece of shit, AAA game, which the only people hoping that they can charge more money for their products are probably people who are not selling products anyway, because if they were, it's not really a big consideration, is it? And if they were already making such a popular product, they could probably charge more money because they'd have that goodwill built up with their community and the people who are buying the thing, but they don't, and GTA is not going to change that. So according to games industry analyst and veteran game producer Matthew Ball, there is hope within the industry. GTA 6 will cost upwards of $100 to justify another price increase for games. It won't. Like, I'm sorry, but if you work in the games industry and you've not understood yet, from 2023 and 2024, the unprecedented level of failure of AAA game studios, and you've seen that, you've lived it, your co-workers have been fired, your company's stock is at an all-time low, you're watching all these things happen around you, and you sit there and you think, man, if GTA costs $100, we'll be able to sell our games for more money. You shouldn't have a job in that industry. You are actually fucking stupid. You're a moron. And I don't mind saying that, because even from like a layman's outside perspective, or somebody who doesn't work directly with the industry, but, you know, sometimes adjacent, but does follow it very closely, there's no way you can reconcile, oh, everyone's laying everyone off and our stock prices are all going down, and these massive games are all failing at an unprecedented rate and scale, but at the current price. But if GTA costs more money, we'll be able to charge more money for these games nobody's already buying. You shouldn't have a job. You should not be in this industry. I don't know how you can do this. It's so fucking dumb. Publisher Take-Two Interactive counted among the first to announce and embrace the $10 price hike at the start of this console generation in 2020, which raised the standard cost of AAA games from $60 to $70. People were really upset about this, and I go both ways on it. I think I have a fairly rational take on this one. Everything goes up in price as time goes on. It just does. You know, if you go to McDonald's, you can't buy a double cheeseburger on the $1 menu anymore, can you? In England, you used to be able to buy a double cheeseburger in McDonald's for £1. It's now like $2.50 or something mental. It's incredibly much more expensive. So games going from $60 to $70, fair enough. My response to that is, I just won't buy them. If a game, the bridge between $60 and $70 is never going to be the determining factor on whether or not I buy a AAA game day one. Whether the game is good will be the determining factor of whether I buy a game, regardless of $60 or $70. If the game is worth $70, I'll pay $70. If the game is not worth $70, I wouldn't have paid $60, because it wouldn't have been worth $60. That $10 change is by and large irrelevant to me, and probably to most gamers. I think it's outrage for the sake of outrage, because again, I barely buy AAA games anyway when they release, because I'm aware of the fact that when it comes out for $60 or $70, it's probably nowadays going to be buggy, it's probably going to be rushed, it's probably going to be missing content, and I've got like a million games I can play that isn't that one. So why would I buy it day one? There's like a handful of companies on the planet where they can release a game, and regardless, $60, $70, whatever it is, I'll buy it day one. And it's like, you know, From Software, I'll buy their games. CD Projekt Red, probably buy their games. Most games I play are indie, so you can't really include any of those. But I think they're probably two of the only. Maybe if I really thought about it, I'd probably be able to come up with another couple. But just in general, I'm not like a AAA buyer anyway. I just wait, because I know in 6 months I can buy like the definitive edition for like $30 that has all the DLCs and the game's fixed. I'll give you a great example of this. When Star Wars Jedi whatever, the first one came out, the first one that's like a kind of Souls game, Jedi, from the people who make Apex Legends. When that came out, I loved that game. I thought it was really good. It had a few problems, like the inconsistency of where the save point, like the bonfire things were and things like that. But in general, really good game. Really enjoyed it. When the second one came out, I mean, it's EA, so they have no goodwill built up with me anyway, so I'm not going to buy it day one. When it came out and that paid dividends in the game being terrible performance-wise and stuff, I simply made the decision as a consumer, whether it was $70 or $60, I'm not going to buy this game. I'll just wait. It's not that important to me to play it day one, so I'll just wait. And then I played it on Game Pass, I don't know, like 6 months ago or something. The game was still fucked performance-wise. They essentially abandoned fixing that game, which is a shame, because I think the game was fantastic. I think it was one of my favorite games of the last couple of years that I played. It was really, really good, but ran terribly. And I played that game for essentially nothing because of Game Pass, because they can't continually sell these games for $70. Eventually, you're going to be able to play it nowadays on Game Pass for you know, your $10 monthly subscription or what it is, or buy it for like $10 and get like the whole thing with all the DLCs and everything. So games going up in price is mostly just like it's a decision the same as everything else. You're putting the product, the value of the product in the hands of the consumer and saying, is this worth $70? And if it isn't, they don't buy it, in which case that backfires for the company, and they'd have been better off with it being 60, because maybe people can stomach 60 more than they can 70. But I think for most people, they don't just gobble up games nowadays. They don't just say, oh, brand new game, $70, I'm definitely going to consume that one. They're probably more conscious about what they buy because of the oversaturation. So I think 60, 70, $100, it makes no fucking difference, because people are still only going to buy the outstanding ones and they're going to ignore the other ones. The only difference being the company that releases a good game for $100 is going to get more out of you than they would have done before, but you would probably have bought the game anyway, which means the successful games are going to be successful regardless of the price. But obviously I don't want games to be $100. But if a game is going to be $100, you better give me $100 worth of a game, because if you don't, then I'm just not going to buy it, and nobody else is. It's gonna flop. It's gonna fail. So again, $60, $70, it really made no difference to me when it happened, because I don't buy enough AAA games for $10 to make that big of a difference. And I think most people nowadays are it's just how they consume content like that. Since then, several other AAA publishers have followed suit, thus turning $70 games into the new status quo. But rising development costs, that's their choice, by the way, have executives longing for yet another price bump, and apparently they're hoping Grand Theft Auto 6 will be the catalyst that helps justify such a change. By the way, if you want to up games to $100, remove all microtransactions, remove all DLCs, remove all forms of like buying stuff in the game, and make good games, and then that can be the norm, because people will pay for that. The number one thing that will allow you to raise the price of a game is making a good game. The number two thing is respecting your users enough to give them something worth that $100. If you can't do both those things, you're not going to be able to charge 70, let alone 100. And your company is probably going to get outpaced by your competitors, just like Ubisoft have. And the companies that do shit like this and long for this without understanding that they're the reason their games can't charge this money, because they don't make games worth that money, they're going to go away. And we're only just seeing now the stalwarts, the fucking vanguard, the big quadruple A publishers really being punished for what they've done for the last 10 years. You can't get away with it anymore. The fucking indie games industry is running laps around you. Developers and publishers that have came out of nowhere are running laps around you. Like, it's adapt or die time, and a lot of these motherfuckers be dying straight up. So yeah, this discourse is just fucking hilarious to me, because they're all just so disconnected from reality to be saying this. Game makers want GTA 6 to cost $80 to $100. In a presentation about the state of video games in 2025, I read about a quarter of this, and it's really good, by the way. So you should definitely go take a look at this. Matthew Ball broke down the industry's struggle to maintain inflation-adjusted prices. The pursuit of higher fidelity has increased development costs, he reasoned, while also noting that too many games are competing for player engagement. This is just true. And not only that, the way you've got to look at business is you can use Facebook as an example of this. What you have, and Twitter as well, I guess, you have a finite sum of people in the world. It's a lot of people, but you have a finite amount of people. For now, it's going up, obviously, but they've got to get to age where they can, pay you money and things for stuff. And those finite people have a finite amount of time. And what you've got is you can have a growth industry like video games have been for the last decade, and it can keep going up and up and up, and everyone thinks, oh my god, this is amazing, it's never going to stop. But eventually, the amount of money that you can shake out the pockets of the amount of people that exist that will be shaken plateaus, and then that's it. There will be games out there, like a lot of these freemium games, loot box games, gacha games, whatever they're going to be, mobile games, things like that. that earn loads of money, but they're not going to continually break new records and earn more and more and more money, because the amount of people that will spend that amount of money on those games is finite. So spending and assuming that that's going to always go up is, I mean, it's stupid, isn't it? It doesn't make any logical sense, because again, there's only a certain amount of people that are going to do that. And it's the same with normal video games. And what you've got to imagine is, as things progress in the world, more and more things compete for everybody's time. You know, as you get older, your family, your friends, your health, your life, your job, all new media coming out, TV shows, comics, fucking books, movies, whatever it's going to be, all these things compete for your time outside of video games. And then within video games, you've got older games. You've got live service games that you play as a matter of like, oh, this is my main game. And you don't typically move on from those very quickly. And those exist. And another one coming out doesn't necessarily mean you're going to move to that one. Like, the idea that everything's just going to continue getting bigger and bigger and bigger, over enough time it will, but not, you reach a plateau and then that's it. It slows down, and maybe it goes up a little bit every year, but it's not going to continually go up all the time. And obviously these game development companies, these publishers, they've done their level best to ruin what they had by spending more and more and more and more money on something, thinking that that's going to make good games, when it doesn't. Spending more on graphics, when that's like graphics are like the cherry on the fucking cake, right? Is that even the saying? The cherry on the ice cream? I don't know, my brain doesn't work right now. That's like the last thing. If the game's dog shit but has good graphics, nobody cares. But if the game's really good and has really good graphics, you've got like a winning combo there. But a game can be, again, the indie industry proves this, and they're catching up on graphics and things anyway because of how readily available pre-made assets and things are, and stuff like that. And the amount of money you can make now from self-publishing an indie game through Steam and then put that into making another game, and, you know, made by gamers for gamers, people that really care about what they're making, versus focus group tested orders from on high, you don't play video games and just want to extract value from the space, games made by people where it's just their job, it's just their career, and they're just another face in a nameless group of people making a product that, you know, probably isn't their passion anymore, being overworked and underpaid, most likely, in this industry. The fact that their idea is, oh, we'll just spend more, just goes to show that they're completely out of touch with the industry in the first place. Because with how things are at the moment, there's only a certain amount of single player games that can release for $60-$70 per year that are gonna do really well, and they're the standouts, and everything else is just kind of like, it's just gonna perform mediocre or worse. And it's not confusing or surprising to anybody who pays attention, and yet it seems like they're always surprised when they release a Dragon Age Veilguard, which I don't give a fuck about all the like, oh, it's woke, non-woke. That game was bad because the writing, I mean, it wasn't bad, it was just mediocre. And I don't care what anyone tells me, the previous two games were mediocre as well. Dragon Age Inquisition was a mediocre game, but it was at a time where you could release a mediocre game and the game could sell vastly more units. It was less money, there was less competition, people were more enamored with the IP. Dragon Age 2 was a deeply mediocre game for the time as well. It was fucking terrible compared to Dragon Age Origin, and that sold well. Again, same thing, benefited from being of its time where there was less competition and less expectation and less cost in making the game. Dragon Age Veilguard, if you released that game 10 years ago with like the same level of writing and like relative graphics to what was out at the time, that game would have probably done fine. But it's not good enough nowadays for people to spend what they're asking you to spend on that game. And that's just a story of current times, and you've got to adapt or die. And they're not adapting. They're still just throwing more money at mediocre products. If they spent that money and the game was amazing, congratulations, the game would have done super well. And you can go through like most AAA games that release nowadays and say the same thing. They're not breaking records unless they're a Game of the Year contender, because everyone's got too much other shit to spend money on and do. And you've got games from 15 years ago you've not played that's $3 now, where you get all the DLC, and the game's going to take an average person who has a job and a wife and kids a week or two to complete. And then they just move on to the next like $5 game, or the new indie game that just came out that's going to sap up 200 hours of your life, or the Path of Exile that's going to have you playing it for the next year, or whatever it's going to be. This is all common sense shit. Games costing more money doesn't relate to game earning more money. It just doesn't. It never has, and it never will. The pursuit of high fidelity, development cost, blah blah blah. Games have never been cheaper when adjusting for inflation. Yeah, I mean, this is just true. Games have not gone up by that much money. The thing is that again, it's not the box price that's even the issue. Games cost about the same because a lot of game developers treat games like a platform. Like when a new console comes out, the console usually costs more money for them to make than it costs for them to sell it, which means they make a loss on the console. But then they make the money back up from the things that they sell within the console ecosystem. So the video games, the microtransactions, the themes, or whatever that they sell in the cash shop of the console, they make their money from that. And then they use that to subsidize the cost of the console, because they just want to get you into their ecosystem to spend money. And as long as they're making money, they don't care if it's from product A, B, or C. It'll be the combination of everything in the bucket that is how they view the money. And a lot of video games are treated this way. So why would you charge $100 for a game that's going to get you less people into the ecosystem when you can charge 70, and then those people come in and spend money on all the extra shit you put in there? So it makes sense that it hasn't gone up that much, because they charge in other areas. So yeah, it's kind of just the way I see that one. Interestingly, the final section of the presentation analyzes how Grand Theft Auto 6's release will impact industry playtime and spend in 2025. Despite the title likely cannibalizing much of the audience's attention, Ball claims many decision makers, quote, hope that Take-Two will price GTA 6 at $80 to $100 to break the price barrier so other publishers follow suit. If you guys follow suit and think that because the actual standout game of probably the decade, if GTA 6 is what GTA 5 was, but just new, it's like game of the decade, right? Because that's what happens when Grand Theft Auto games come out. They are the game. It transcends everything. Everybody knows what GTA is. Everybody plays GTA. It makes insane money. If you think the exception means you can do something that the exception does, you deserve to fail, and I will laugh when you do, because if this game comes out and charges $100, the first fucking quadruple slot producer that comes out and puts their game at $100, I will fucking roll. I might even piss my pants laughing at you when you do it, because people aren't buying your game for $70, my brother. They're not gonna pay $100. It does. GTA could be $1,000, and that wouldn't mean you could charge $100. You're out your mind. You are delusional. You are everything that's wrong with this industry, and it will expel you by virtue of market choice, because nobody's going to pay $100 for your shitty game. Some people will. We call those corporate sword swallowers, and they'll defend it as well. I'll see them in my comments when I criticize it when the games do come out. Oh, it's fucking inflation, bro. Yeah, it's inflation, bro. You're just broke because you don't lick your lips when they unzip. You're just broke, bro. You see it all the time. But by and large, the market will reject this. It just will, especially if unless it's like a standout amazing game. If From Software come out and go, yeah, guys, we're charging $100 for Elden Ring 2, but you're getting we're going to guarantee releasing 2 DLCs in the first 2 years, and you get them both for free. People will go, yeah, okay, yeah, all right then, fair enough. If they just turn around and go, yeah, we're just releasing Elden Ring 2, it's going to cost $100. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, I do love From Software games. I do get $100 value out of you know, maybe I can stomach that, and they'll probably buy it. If EA's next game or Ubisoft's next game, they're like, yeah, next one's $100. Fucking see you later, mate. I'll see you at the job line. I'll see you in the UK at the job centre. I'll see you at the fucking Dole office. We'll see you trading your food stamps in, because ain't nobody paying $100 for your game. Dear. The analyst added the following in a subsequent slide: no player hopes for such a hike, but recall that packaged prices have never been lower in real terms than they are today, even though budgets are an all-time high. That's your fucking problem. Nobody's telling you to increase the budget of your games. Nobody's saying, oh, I need 7 more pixels on every person's face, 70 million more pixels in everyone's faces, so yeah, I want to spend $30 more. Nobody gives a fuck about that. Make a good game, people will give you money for it. It's worth taking note that Take-Two CEO Interactive Strauss Zelnick has already addressed price-related concerns relating GTA 6, following unsubstantiated rumors claiming the game would cost as much as $150 at launch. Without going into the specifics, he stated in May 2024 earnings call that his company's goal centers on delivering more value than what we charge. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And they usually have done, so totally reasonable. Either way, I just thought that was funny. Always will be, but we'll see. I, in a way, because I'll still pay it and so will everyone else, if GTA 6 releases at $100, I'm not going to not buy it, am I? If the game's good, if reviews come out and, you know, the embargo lifts and it's like the performance is fucked and the game sucks, obviously not going to pay it. But if it's just like, it's just GTA 5 but better, yeah, I'm going to pay $100, because even though I don't want that to be the norm, I know it never will be. Because a lot of people do that thing where they say, oh, if you do this, it's, in this specific example, it's reinforcing negative practices and it's going to harm blah, blah, blah. No, actually, I think that would harm in the opposite way. Because if GTA 6 comes out and it's $100 and everyone's like, oh yeah, this game's fucking sick, it's definitely worth $100, and they buy it, and then the shit companies go, oh yeah, we'll release ours at $100, then those games fail and that company, their stocks go down and they lose money. That harms them, not the industry, because the industry will be fine, because from the ashes, like a phoenix, will rise. The money will, people are not going to stop playing video games. The money will flow into products that are worth money. It's how the market works. People will go and buy the next indie game instead. People will support the AAA and quadruple A developers that are making games that they enjoy, and then they'll forget about those. And in 10, 15, 20, 30 years, the companies that did this will be maybe not forgotten, but there'll be a fucking YouTube video somewhere, you know, how EA, you know, shit themselves and lost their company's money and with one bad decision and whatever clickbait title we can use. But yeah, I don't think this is like at all realistic that it's going to massively change the industry, even if it is $100. And if it does, you know, makes me look stupid, but there we go. Let me know what your opinion is, suggest me content, whatever else. Check out GamerSups, the link in the video description. There will be a discount code. You can use that, you can get money off, and that gives me a kickback, which is win-win for everybody. And yeah, I'll see you next time, I guess. Peace.